Welcome to Love Babs Love Talk on WNHH-FM, your home for community radio. Usually you're hearing from Babs Rawls Ivy at this hour. Babs is recovering from some hip surgery, and I'm filling in to help keep the conversation going and the good vibes flowing. Babs is through the surgery. We're all wishing her a speedy recovery because we can't wait till she gets back. And we got a bunch of stuff planned this week while she's gone in the second hour of the program. Tomorrow on Tuesday, we're supposed to have Taisha Walker-Myers, the president of New Haven Board of Alders, who's finishing up her 10th year, helping a team bring a new direction to the city's legislative body. And we're also going to have Carolyn Tamby Smith and Margaret Lee to talk about what to make of this violence and discrimination going on against Asian Americans in our country right now. So stay tuned tomorrow for that on Love Babs, Love Talk, second hour. Today, we also have a great pair of segments planned. Later in the hour, we have from Joshua Van Hosen, a Republican. Believe it or not, they do exist in New Haven. And they're not even scary. And he's running for Board of Alders. He's going to tell us about that, all the great work he does in the community. But I'm really excited about this first segment. We have two of the great rabbis in the New Haven area here to talk to us about what's happening starting this weekend, the annual Passover holiday, Pesach, the number one with a bullet all-star holiday on the Jewish calendar, meaning that's the one that more Jews than any other participate in every year. And it's very meaningful to us in different ways, and it takes on special meaning this year. So let's say good morning after all that to Rabbi Marcy Bellows from Congregation Beth Shalom Rav Tzedek, a returnee to this program, and Bruce Immerman, the rabbi of Congregation Michigan Israel. Welcome, folks. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, Paul.
We're doing this morning, all right? So as you know, the famous question we ask at the Passover Seder, and we all get together for the meal, is why is this night different from other nights? The question's been asked for thousands of years about the holiday. It's taken on a special meaning, that question, last year and this year, because families are gathering or not gathering, or gathering in new ways for the Seder meal, the first two nights. Rabbi Bellows, why is this Passover different from the other Passovers?
It definitely takes on a different flavor this year. I have to tell you, I was really reflecting on that in the sense that, Passover is all about redemption and feeling freedom. And we feel our freedom from COVID just around the corner. Mm-hmm. Just like the Israelites felt their freedom, and it was so close. Mm-hmm. And they knew if they crossed through the Red Sea, it was, they just were about to reach their freedom. They had the Egyptian army right behind them, mm-hmm. but they had to have the bravery and the patience to get through the Red Sea and make their way to freedom. And we are so close. We just need a little more patience. And that's where we are this year with our Passover Seder, is just waiting a little bit longer.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of ways you can go with that. One is the public policy question. I'm guessing we're on that side that said COVID needed to be taken seriously when some other people weren't as much. And maybe we're not so happy that governors are loosening restrictions in that last month when variants are there. But on the other hand, there are other people feel like ready to go. But there's also the question of how we actually celebrate Passover. Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned, we're celebrating the Jews' liberation from slavery in Egypt and what that means in all those great ways every year. We talk about how it means in a modern context. I love the way you just put it. So last year, the pandemic hit a month before Passover, and we had to figure out what to do. And we all decided, a lot of us had Seders over Zoom.
Yep.
That was tough for families like ours because we don't use electricity on the holiday. And rabbis were issuing rulings about whether that was okay. Did you and most of your congregants get together in person with their families last year, or have Seders on Zoom, and how'd that go?
We did a congregational service over Zoom. And
really?
Yeah.
First night or second night?
Second night.
So everybody goes in and they're all at different timing when you're on Zoom, which is the part that makes me crazy. Were you able to sing like Chagad Yah and the other great songs we do at the Seder, or sing Hallel, or was that impossible with everybody at different time?
Well, that's the hard thing about Zoom, that, a year later, you hope they would have figured out. And so Zoom, come on, any minute now, which is the limitation on only one voice or one sound at a time. And so, either I or the cantor were singing at once, and everybody else on mute were hopefully singing along. And they, they were joining in on Chad Gadya or on Dayenu, and we hopefully were harmonizing along, and we could feel their presence and their spirit. We just couldn't hear it. Mm-hmm. And we did our best. And we were still figuring it all out.
Now, you were actually doing an incredible mitzvah. I mean, people were wrought up. It was a lot different last year, right? Last year, there was so much we didn't know about this pandemic. Not that we have it all figured out now. But last year, we thought like if we touch a doorknob, we were going to get it, right? We were doing all this crazy stuff with hand lotion and everything, disinfectant. How did it work out? What did it mean to put together that communal Seder? And how did that keep people together and keep Passover in their lives?
We hoped that people would log on. We knew how much people missed it. It's always been an enormous event by our congregation. Between 70 and 100 people would come, and people loved it. We also always open it up to the community. So people who are not Jewish have always loved coming and learning about Passover. And so we had to make sure to alert the community that we were not going to be holding it at our congregation last year and also this year. But luckily, a restaurant owned by one of our congregants, Al Forno's, which has always catered our event, has made Passover dinner available to everybody. And so people are picking up their Passover dinners, bringing them home.
Which place is that? What's
Al
it called?
Forno's by Bob. It's Bob Zemmel, the Zemmel family.
O-R-N-O? O-R-N-O?
Al Forno. Yeah, O-R-N-O. Al Forno.
Is that Lou Zemmel's descendants?
Yeah, Bob Zemmel. I don't know.
Lou Zemmel ran for Senate in the 80s. Citizens Party, owned Powder Ridge Ski Area. Where they had the rock concerts.
I don't
there.
know.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I'm not that long in Connecticut, but we'll have to find out.
I actually worked on his campaign when I was in college.
That's pretty cool. Small world. Oh my God. So he, he's preparing meals for all of us, which is really nice. And then we can do the Seder this year together and still feel like we're connected in that way. And it's not the same, but it still feels really good. And we've gotten good at creating moments of interaction on Zoom. A year later, we've learned a lot. Mm-hmm. So, and we have that hope that we'll be together soon.
So how many people showed up last year?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. I don't remember off the top of my head. I remember it was at least 60 or 70 people.
And are you doing the same thing this year?
Yes, we're doing the same thing.
First night?
The second night.
Second night. Okay, I want you to hold something because I want to get to Rabbi Immerman. What I'm going to ask you is, you just made a comment about we've learned a lot in the last year. So I want to come back and ask you how you're going to incorporate that this Pesach and moving forward. Rabbi Immerman, what did PMI, Congregation of Michigan Israel, do when the pandemic hit with Pesach, and what are you doing this year? We just lost Rabbi.
No, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Everything, all the internet in my life disappeared for a second.
But the lighting's excellent, by the way.
Thank you. Things that I never thought I would have to think about. Speaking of different nights. All right. Can you just repeat? Can you repeat that question?
So when the pandemic hit, what did you folks do? How did you pivot for Pesach? What did you do last year, and what are you going to do this year that makes this Passover different from other ones?
What I'm thinking about is moving from a sprint to a marathon. You mentioned in the very beginning, especially as we were thinking about Pesach, it was the first big community event that we decided to do online. We weren't sure. The Torah studies that I was leading up to Passover was talking about Pesach Sheni from Numbers and saying, by May, we'll be back in the building having a Seder all together, because of course we just thought this was just going to disappear. And we were sprinting along to do everything we could. And we put together this great online Haggadah and did the best we could, and we found ways to make sure that people could pick up food at CMI, like Rabbi Bellows was saying.
And you had a Seder online?
So we had a Seder online.
Second night?
The second night. We had great community participation. One of the fascinating parts of COVID is our numbers have increased because it's convenient for people to log in online, and there are people who are engaging with us who wouldn't otherwise. And I think that's
is that people
when I say with us, really the community.
They're elderly and it's hard for them to move around, or are there other reasons?
I think more than just elderly. I think that's a great segment that's able to connect. But I know there are people who are going for Shabbat hikes when it's nice with the service in their pockets. I know people that's their dinner time, especially younger families, and they would never be able to come to a service, but now they're just able to sit and have dinner and have services. And it's really opened up all these possibilities. A colleague of mine, Rabbi Jen Gubitz in Boston, was talking about the fact that for decades, we've been trying to figure out how do we get people to do more Jewish activities in their home. And now they are, which is quite remarkable. And, as
does that mean some of the stuff's going to become permanent that you've done since last Pesach?
Yes. We are not going to continue. We are not going to be a stiff-necked people and look back to Egypt. It was great in Egypt. We had leeks and fish. So we're going to read in a few weeks. But we're going to look forward, and we're always going to try new ways of connecting and continuing to build community and being able to incorporate that meaning and purpose through Judaism.
And like Rabbi Bellows, are you hosting a second night Seder this year online?
We are. So it's going to feel very similar to last year, except again, we'd already created the Haggadah. So we're no longer sprinting. So we're able to settle into a cadence. And so this year we're really highlighting community. We invited many more people to participate in the Seder, to have kids do the 4 questions with a video montage, and to really highlight the fact that we're a sacred community that continues whether we're in person or not.
So, Rabbi Bellows, I was asking you said we've learned from this. What have we learned that's going to be incorporated in how you do Pesach this year and moving forward?
We've learned a lot more about, similar to Rabbi Immerman, how to incorporate more people. There was so much fear and trepidation. Zoom was a whole new technology that maybe I'd only attended a few webinars on in the past, before the pandemic started. And so we knew how to turn it on and we knew how to record. We didn't know how to use it to its best advantage. By the time we hit high holidays, we knew how to set up a TV studio in the sanctuary, which was a bizarre experience. And so by now, we've recorded beautiful choral pieces that we can play on Zoom. We've recorded videos. We don't plan on doing that for Passover, but we have whole new techniques that we can use. And so, being able to turn to the congregation and even ask for volunteers to read, to make sure to include just volunteer opportunities in the service. When I'm in person for a community Seder, I love doing little things like hiding index cards under the plates so people don't know that they're participating, and then I'll say, okay, we're at the Wicked Child. So everybody look under their plates, and who's the Wicked Child? And that people go, oh my gosh. And they have to come up and, speak into the microphone. And there's other little parts like that in the service. And so it'll be like that where, if people are comfortable, they can participate. So, hopefully we'll be able to add more because we're calmer. It's very similar to what Rabbi Emmerman was saying, that we can breathe more this year.
Yeah.
And just go into it with a whole different mindset.
Yeah, with some hope, just like you were saying, just like the Israelites had hope. You got to be a little brave one last step.
It's true. And this, and similarly, we have incredible attendance at everything. And that's been such a fascinating phenomenon. There's been a paradigm shift in the Jewish community. We have, my family's all in Chicago, and they're able to log in and participate in a way that I've never experienced in my rabbinical career. And that's wonderful. That's such a machaya for me. That's such a joy. And so, we have people who have left our community, moved away, who are able to rejoin as an associate member, and they're able to come and be a part of our community whenever they want. So there's a whole new way of participating in the Jewish community now because of Zoom that we don't plan on saying goodbye to.
We're saying hello to Rabbi Marcy Bellows and Rabbi Bruce Immerman on Love Babs, Love Talk, second hour.
Brian.
What?
Brian Immerman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry.
That's okay.
At second hour here at Love Babs, Love Talk, I'm Paul Bass. We're filling in for Babs, who's recovering, and we hope speedily and in our days from hip surgery. You know, I wanted to riff for a second because we had thought out questions in advance, but one thing I love about Seders, we sit around the table, tell the story about the liberation from Egypt, do the ritual prayers, Hallel, the 4 questions, is that we always have conversations that then tie it into our days. So Rabbi Bellows was just talking about how we have more hope than last year. We're about to get to the other side. For some reason, that made me think of a conversation, one of my favorite Seders 10 years ago, when it was the Arab Spring. And all these uprisings were taking place in Tunisia first, and then Syria, other Arab countries. And we had this hope that there was going to be liberation in the Arab world, which obviously is a sensitive subject that comes up in so many Passovers. And then 10 years later, it didn't happen. Now I'm thinking, well, thinking we're about on the other side, and we're so excited. We're almost there. We think 90% of our country might be vaccinated, or 80% within a few months. We're looking at other nations where that freedom isn't there. The vaccine isn't being distributed in the third world and in other emerging countries. Any thoughts on that, Rabbi Immerman? How we see other people's liberation in connection to ours at these moments as we're applying the Passover story to modern days.
It's something that I've always brought up in my Seders. I love so there's some wonderful organizations. Hayas, I always look to their Passover supplements. A wonderful immigrant aid society for refugees and other immigrants. Trua, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights. Those are kind of 2 of my main organizations amongst many others that always put together wonderful resources to help incorporate in any Passover Seder. Mitzrayim in Hebrew means narrow place, and we're being redeemed from a narrow place. And we certainly talk about it in an historical context, but it's really, what is our narrow place in which we are bound? And then how, once we are on the other side, we got to turn around and reach back and help others, and literally help redeem them. And just as God reached out to us with a strong and outstretched arm, we have to do the same for others. And this year, I'm especially thinking of the migrant children who are at the border who continue to need support. Unfortunately, there's so many. There's the intellectual hope that I have that we're getting to the other side of COVID. There's also the deep anxiety in my kishkas that until none of us are free, until all of us are free. Another trope that we say on Passover, and we have to do something to help redeem the rest of the world from COVID while we are experiencing our own redemption.
Rabbi Bellows, I just gave an example of a Passover I'll never forget. Partly that was because of the young people at our table, the great questions they asked. Is there a Passover you'll never forget?
Yes. And I will try to get through this without crying, if you don't mind.
You're allowed to cry, actually. This is Love Babs, Love Talk. Let's throw it on the table.
All right. Well, Babs, we wish you a refuah shlema, a complete and speedy recovery. Last year, actually, I observed Passover from Chicago and led the second night Seder from Chicago. I was flying back and forth as protected as possible because my mother was in hospice.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And she had served as the cantor of my home community for many, many years, for over 27 years. And we gathered, I am one of 4 siblings, and we gathered around her hospital bed in her apartment. And we were very aware it was her last Passover, and she ate what she could. And we have pictures, and my dad, who was in an assisted living home, we had on an iPad, he had a seat at the table. It was, not quite Elijah, but it was my dad. And we did a Passover Seder the first night. And so we have pictures of her singing as much as she could. We have pictures of her reaching for the entire box of the sweet fruit slices and just grabbing onto it and saying,
just so people know, sweet fruit slices. You don't mean the real fruit, right? You mean those candy fruits?
No, the candied fruit slices.
Yeah, that's Passover. Yeah.
She's like, this is all mine. And so we have some very like, my 5-year-old mom came out, we always joke about like, oh, mom's being 5 right now, and so, it was a precious moment that we tried to like seal into our memory, every single moment of it. And, it'll be hard to get through this year. Each moment of this year is replaying those last moments from last year. And, it was very special. So that Passover will be, the most special Passover, I think.
What a story. So that this Passover will be forever for you associated with that, correct?
And this is the first without her. Yeah.
Well, I'm very sorry about her passing.
Thank you.
My brother had died the first day the lockdown started.
Oh my goodness.
We had to figure out how to bury him. And I was curious. I didn't want to, and he was in New York where it all was. And we ended up, I ended up conducting it so we didn't have to make a rabbi exposed. We had 10 people around the grave and we felt we couldn't hug, but it kind of worked. And I guess it sounds like it kind of worked with your mom. It actually sounds beautiful.
It was really beautiful. And my siblings and I, had been enough around each other that we felt like we had, taken all the proper precautions. And it was good that she was home and it was the right thing. And it was really precious.
Well, Yasha Koch, and you're the daughter of a cantor.
Yeah. And I have a brother who's a rabbi as well. And
wow. So those must have been some Passovers with arguments about text and some pretty lovely singing.
We had a blast. Yeah.
Because I love the conversations the best, especially with the kids, the questions they ask. That's a wonderful story, Rabbi Bellows.
Thank you for asking.
I hope, and Rabbi Immerman, do you have a Passover you'll never forget?
I do. My condolences to both of you. I know it can be so difficult to sit around a Passover table with an empty chair. So been thinking about both of you and keeping you in my hearts. But the Passover, I have similar memories. I mean, it was my grandfather who always loved the Passover Seder, but the Seder that really jumped out at me is when the first year of rabbinical school was in Jerusalem, and I actually moved there 3 or 4 months early, which meant I got 2 Passover Seders in Israel. The second one I actually spent in the former Soviet Union in Russia, but we can talk about that at a different time.
Wow. Well, that's what we used to talk about, right? The Seders, we used to talk about the Jews in the Soviet Union.
So the HUC has this program where they send students to the former Soviet Union to help lead Seders. And the first night, they actually didn't have anything planned. So it was myself, a colleague, and 2 other people sitting around the Black Sea.
Wow. Waving to Chabad. Yeah.
With whatever we could scrounge up. But the Seder that I was really thinking about is with a bunch of rabbinical students from different denominations in Jerusalem. And I think we started at, whenever sundown was, around 7 p.m. and we finished around 4. And
it was time for the morning Shema. That's what we always say at the Seder, right? When the rabbi said it's time for the morning Shema, meaning you're allowed to leave now because it's getting really late. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really opened my eyes to what a Seder could be. We'd always just kind of gone through the Baskin Haggadah, which is beautiful as it is. We had never really unpacked it and uncovered it. And it was just, we were each told to take a different section of the Seder and do whatever we wanted with it. And it really was powerful of what Seder can really be. And I just remember
at the Black Sea.
Yeah, that was just a completely different experience of what life may have been like for my great-grandparents in Minsk.
What it also makes me think about is like the movement of Jews. So they celebrated in Eastern Europe, right, for centuries, Passover. It's been a couple centuries now. I mean, a couple thousand years we've been doing Seders. I was reading a good piece this weekend by Mark Gerson about how someone from 3rd century Yemen or 1800s from Russia, if they walked into one of our Seders today, they would know what's going on and what we're doing. What are we doing, Rabbi Bellows?
What are we doing? Isn't it incredible? So much is the same, and yet we work so hard to keep it relevant. And I think that's really important too. It's something I really think is important, not Maxwell House, please don't come after me. But
part of my memory too.
But Maxwell House, really, there are so many incredible Haggadot out there that are just crying out to be used, that are so rich and so creative for all ages. In fact, there are even online companies that let you create your own Haggadah from scratch, that you can put your own pictures in and your own readings in. And because this holiday is filled with an opportunity for creativity, you can add in all of the same prayers so that our ancestors would recognize every moment, every beat that is supposed to be there, and it can still be relevant. It can be relevant to the kids, it can be relevant to our grandparents. And we can have those discussions and those questions and relate it to COVID and relate it to whatever ills of society we feel are there that we need to discuss. You know, we did a chocolate Seder in Sunday school yesterday, and we still talked about fair trade chocolate and how important that is to be aware of. So as fun and delicious and like sick we were to our stomachs at the end of it, we still talked about an important social justice issue. So we can still make it really special and important to us while keeping it relevant.
I think your two congregations, I think you have two very lucky congregations listening to what you two are up to. Is it fair to say then, to state the obvious maybe, that Seders stay the same and they evolve? There are things we always do that make it part of the tradition, and things we always add every year, just like Judaism itself, just like human beings ourselves, and just like what we're doing with COVID, and we're reimagining our lives. It's rooted in tradition and the wisdom of the past and seeing new possibilities. Is that fair, Rabbi Emmerman? And what are your plans for this year, in addition to the communal Seder? What are you going to be doing this Pesach?
So I'm just thinking, you know, Rabbi Rav Cook, the first chief rabbi of Israel, is really
vegetarian, by the way.
What'd you say?
Vegetarian. He was a vegetarian.
He was?
Yeah, the first Rav Cook, the chief rabbi of Israel. The argument is about whether he ate meat on Shabbos, because is it literally commanded that we do that, or was that metaphorical that it's supposed to be something special you don't get at those? There are big fights among those of us in the vegan Jewish community and those not, about Rav Cook's vegetarianism, but that's an aside. Never mind.
Interestingly enough, but I want to have that conversation with you sometime. But he's famously said, "Hayashan nit kadesh v'chadash nit kadesh," that the old will become new and the new will become holy. And we, you know, what are we doing? We are constantly helping people find meaning and purpose through Jewish values and rituals and traditions, and we're creating community and building community and strengthening community. That's what Seder has been about. Since the first Seder, since the first time we commemorated the Exodus from Egypt, it's about renewal and rebirth. And I think it's really exciting. And the way that we continue to innovate, but reaching back into tradition is so powerful. You know, this question of what is the best Haggadah, the fact that we can do these digital Haggadot now, and it was already a direction that I've been going in for a while. It means that we get to take the best of all the other Haggadot and put them together and change it year by year and focus and highlight on different aspects of the Seder. And I think it's super powerful. The thing that we're going to miss is not being able to open up and say, "Oh, remember when Sasha spilled some wine right here?" Or find, you know, the note card that was the joke somebody was passing around. But I think other than that, it really allows for wonderful innovation while continuing to preserve that tradition.
Yeah, my daughter, she's grown. She actually did that. She went online and created a Haggadah, her favorite stuff, plus Mary Oliver poems that she actually printed out. And we're going to be in person this year with her and her family, because we've been vaccinated and we were a pod. So we're actually going to try out this Haggadah. So I hope you have a great Seder. And how about you, Rabbi Bellows? What are you doing the first night? What if first night you had last year? Obviously, It's not going to be the same thing. Second night, you both have communal Seders, and that's a Congregational Beth Shalom Rodfei Zedek and Congregation Michigan Israel. We'll do a little article on this and give people links to find out more about your congregations, which are wonderful congregations.
Yeah, there's no fee for us. If anyone would like to register to join us on Zoom, it would be a pleasure to have you join us.
Awesome.
For first night, we'll be with my in-laws who are vaccinated, and that'll be wonderful. It'll be a pleasure to be able to be with them, and it'll be a real pleasure.
All right. Well, it was such a pleasure talking to both of you, Could talk for hours. Thank you so much to Marcy Bellows, the rabbi of Congregation Beth Shalom Road Tzedek, and Brian Emmerman, Congregation Michigan, Israel. Thanks so much for joining us today. I love the conversation. And folks, thanks for joining us on the second hour of Love Babs, Love Talk. We're going to take a little break. Harry Jaros, I think, is probably going to play Eliyahu Hanavi, which is what we came in on with the Afro-Semitic experience. I'm not sure. Nice. And we come back on the other side. And by the way, have a wonderful Pesach, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the hard work you do to keep people connected. And we're going to come back on the rebound with Joshua Van Hosen, who's making a second run for the Board of Alders as a Republican in uber Democratic New Haven.
Wow, that takes about that
on the rebound. So sit tight with us here on Love Babs, Love Talk at WNHH FM, your home for community radio.
Thank you. Bye.